All right, welcome back, everybody. This is our last presentation of the morning, and then we've got one more this afternoon. So up next, we have the Colorado Rio Grande Restoration Foundation and all of their partners, and I will turn it over to you all to get started.
Awesome, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you everyone for your time today. My name is Cassandra McEwen. I'm a program manager with the Rio Grande Headwaters Restoration Project. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about our project today, Community River Reconnection on the Rio Grande and Alamosa, also known as the Alamosa Riverfront Project because it's a little shorter to say, along with several of our partners that have gone through the Peregrine program with us and have been critical throughout project development and will be just as critical through project implementation. Before we go into introductions, I just wanted to start out with a brief overview of our project vision to frame the rest of our time together today. So the vision of the Alamosa Riverfront Project is community driven and has been years in the making throughout multiple planning processes and in development with our partners. And our vision is a healthier and more resilient Rio Grande with equitable and safe river access, improved recreation opportunities, enhanced agricultural water use and water administration, restored aquatic habitat, and improved flood and drought resilience. So multi-benefit, acknowledging that river health is community health. So our team is a diverse group of partners from nonprofits, local governments, quasi-government entities that all have various interests in the community issues that our project seeks to solve. The San Luis Valley is well known for collaboration and partnerships, and together we've built significant momentum over the years. And this is the first time that all of these partners have come together to implement a project, and we all bring unique things to the table that will lead to successful project implementation. So again, I'm with the Rio Grande Headwaters Restoration Project. We've been around in the San Luis Valley. We're based out of Alamosa since 2004, and we focus on implementing multi-benefit river restoration projects.
And hi everyone, I'm Daniel Boys. I'm the Executive Director at the Rio Grande Headwaters Restoration Project.
I'm Rachel James. I'm the Development Services Director for the City of Alamosa.
I'm Andy Rice, Director of Parks, Recreation, Library, City of Alamosa.
I'm Brian Pucciarello with San Luis Valley Great Outdoors.
I'm Sean Slater. I am the Outdoor Recreation Supervisor and Grants Coordinator with the City of Alamosa Parks and Recreation.
Awesome. And some of our partners that couldn't join us today includes the San Luis Valley Water Conservancy District. They're a water management agency here in the San Luis Valley, and they operate augmentation plans for multi-use water. We also have the Rio Grande Farm Park, which is a local community farm whose property lies within the boundaries of our project area. And they also focused on public recreation and access. And then we also have Alamosa County, who's interested in the project for a number of reasons. And of course, that's the county that we're located in. So just to give a little context for our project, I have a map here up in the upper right area. So we are the only project in Colorado. We're up in the headwaters of the Rio Grande. And we live in a small, rural, and historically underserved community. Our population is less than 10,000. About half of our population is Hispanic. Our median household income is half of that of Colorado, with a 20% poverty rate, which is pretty high. And then our primary economy here in the valley is agriculture. We are a snowmelt-driven basin, though, and it's estimated that about 100,000 acres of production agriculture land is going to have to come out over the next several years due to our declining water resources, so we could reach sustainability. So that will be declining over the next several years. We do have a emerging recreation economy, and with declining water resources here in the valley and us being so reliant on agriculture, it's going to be increasingly important over the next several years that we find ways to diversify our economy to ensure viability into the future. And then finally, more specific to our project area, the Rio Grande through Alamosa is dominated by levees on both sides of the river. And I'll turn it over to Rachel from the city to talk a little bit more about the levees in Alamosa and the current recertification process.
So the city of Alamosa has a 6.4-mile levee system that protects the entire city of Alamosa. It was built with the Army Corps of Engineers. It's been at risk of decertification since 2008, so we'd lose our FEMA floodplain status. And so we started a study in 2018 to re-achieve our recertification. And as of January of this year, we are working with AECOM to rebuild our levee system. We're also coordinating with the Army Corps of Engineers. It's probably something like an 8-year project in terms of construction and design. But after it's done, we're hoping that it's a holistic improvement to our river system that incorporates both recreation elements and the elements that we need to protect our citizens, both in terms of floods and also in terms of paying flood insurance.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. And now I will turn it over to Daniel to talk about history of engagement with our community.
Yeah, so this group of partners has really had a long history of community engagement and developing community-driven plans. And each of those plans in their own way have really identified the need for the Alamosa Riverfront project. So I'll turn it over to Andy just to talk briefly about the Alamosa Comprehensive Plan and how this project fits in with that.
Okay, hi everyone. So the city completed a comprehensive plan in 2017-18, which seems like a long time ago, but really this is a culmination of the top parks and recreation priority that came out of it. Our citizens said activating the Rio Grande corridor was their top priority for our department. And lots of interesting recreation data came out of this comprehensive plan. Our citizens rated trail use and improved trails over common municipal needs like more police officers and fixing potholes. So our community really spoke to the work we're doing in this work here. We're really passionate about activating our corridor. We've already added a few pedestrian style boat ramps for floating, not motorized boating, and even for putting multiple craft in. So we've already started on this plan. This, though, would be the crown jewel of getting everybody access to the river, not just enthusiasts or boaters, but families and our whole community, back connected to its lifeblood, which is the Rio Grande. So excited to talk to you about this, and that's the opener.
And Brian, if you want to talk a little bit about the Revitalize the Rio Coalition and the 2017 feasibility study.
Yeah, definitely. So like Andy mentioned, there was a lot of momentum around this back in 2016, 2017. But at the time, we didn't know what was possible in a river corridor. So that was kind of the idea of the Rio Grande feasibility study. Like, okay, everyone has these great ideas of what they want to see in a river, but like, is any of it possible? And so we had a engineering firm come out, study the river, and just kind of tell us, like, what can we actually do with it? Can we get a playway, or is this going to be flat? How do we go about dredging the river? All these different things. So that study really looked at just what all is possible within our river corridor. And then at the same time, we had this community effort kind of starting from the ground and coming up called Revitalize the Rio. So that was actually a community-created, community-led initiative to push these projects forward on the Rio Grande to kind of take the river back and make it something that's an asset to our community and not just a liability. And so that process, the Revitalize the Rio Coalition, still exists today. And it's expanded in scope a little bit, but it's still about recreation infrastructure, activating the river corridor, and now it's expanded into kind of the health and wellness aspect of being outside as well.
The Rio Grande Stream Management Plan was a planning effort led by the Restoration Project, completed in 2020, and really documented the current river health conditions of the Rio Grande from its actual headwaters at Stony Pass, where it starts as a wet meadow, all the way down to the Colorado-New Mexico state line. And that project really identified that the Rio Grande in Alamosa is impacted by the levee system, has some issues of degraded aquatic habitat and also aging irrigation infrastructure. And then the Rio Grande Basin Implementation Plan, which was finished in 2022, was completed by the Rio Grande Basin Roundtable. And that that plan really also identified, similar to the stream management plan, issues of degraded aquatic and riparian habitat along the Rio Grande and Alamosa, and also aging irrigation infrastructure. And that plan has actually been incorporated into the updated Colorado Water Plan. And Andy, back over to you to close this slide out with the Trails Master Plan and how this project really furthers that.
So as part of the city's efforts to activate the corridor, we realized we have over 25 plus miles of trail, which our partners at SLV Go have helped us double our trail mileage in the last 5 to 10 years. But a lot of these systems are disjointed. And so we kind of wanted to combine the efforts of getting our folks to these wonderful open spaces with also developing a river corridor trail that would bisect our community and really connect everything. So we developed this riparian park to refuge trails master plan, with the anchors being a 200-acre open space park, GoCo funded up on the north, all the way south to the Alamosa National Wildlife Refuge, about 7 or 8 miles in total, which is at the south end of our community, a wonderful refuge that a lot of our residents don't even know exists, and has opened up a little bit more to recreation in the last few years, to fishing, birding, and all those wonderful elements. So this project in Cole Park is at the heart of our Trails Master Plan, and our partners at SLV Go have helped us with targeted outreach. We've gone out to the south side Alamosa, reaching Hispanic populations, some of their community gatherings, taking these projects to them to get their feedback. And we're learning fishing and picnicking and hiking, and some of the things that aren't maybe traditional parks and recreation are important to them, and they've become a huge part of this project. So as we completed this plan with some Colorado Parks and Wildlife grant funding, now we're into implementation. And the riverfront access is just the absolute heart of that. And like I said, excited to talk to you guys about that, but that's how it fits into the city's major planning documents.
Thanks, Andy. And so all of these planning efforts have really documented in a lot of detail the current conditions of the Rio Grande as it flows through Alamosa. And so we just kind of wanted to summarize those for you. And Brian will kick us off to talk a little bit about community river disconnection.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So right now, the levee system, it really acts as a physical and emotional barrier to the river. If you live in town, even if you live right next to the river, it's not something you can see. It's just kind of blocked by this big barrier. And there's also no way like down to it. And so what we've seen is people don't use it, which is pretty natural. So it's really just created this belief system that the river isn't safe and all these things. So we've been trying to change that narrative for a while now. We've had a little bit of success with some small boat ramps upstream that are not in the levee system. And we've already seen just major impacts to the community from those boat ramps. But through the heart of the community, it's just not accessible. And so that's kind of the big thing we're trying to change with this.
And then, as I noted, degraded agricultural irrigation infrastructure is a major issue up and down the Rio Grande, but within our project area, the west side ditch diversion structure is very inefficient for those water users, and also hazardous to operate, and hazardous to anyone who might be within the vicinity of that structure. Additionally, climate change impacts are a challenge in this area. We're seeing in a lot of years actually increased peak flows with earlier snow melt out of the mountains and dust on snow events, and other impacts to our snowpack, but also increasingly common is drought conditions and low flow events. And so those two extremes are really causing challenges in this area. And then building on that, degraded habitat. So specifically, we're seeing degraded aquatic habitat within the project area, resulting from fragmented aquatic habitat, and that's specifically related to the west side ditch diversion being impassable for fish moving upstream. And then also just a lack of aquatic habitat complexity, including a lack of large woody debris in the river channel. So just to show you these current conditions in photos, really helpful just to look at some photos of the area. So the photo on the left side shows the Rio Grande flowing through Alamosa at relatively high flows this last spring. And then the photo to the right of that in the middle is the same area at low flows, taken just a couple of weeks ago. And you can see in that middle photo, on the left side of the river, there's some row crops, and that's actually the Rio Grande Farm Park, where the community farms, and it's a public open space. And then on the right side of the river, there's a row of cottonwood trees and then kind of a grassy area beyond, and that's Cole Park, where the community really there are a lot of community events held there, and the community really utilizes that park. In the upper right-hand corner, that photo shows again the river at low flow, and you can see on river right the levee with the walking path on top of it. And then the photo in the lower right-hand corner is the Highway 160 bridge that crosses the river in Alamosa. And it's hard to see in the photo, but the walking path on the levee actually crosses over the top of that bridge. And you can see it's pretty dangerous to actually try to cross, and there isn't a safe way to cross under the bridge. And so this project will address that by creating a highway underpass. And then a little downstream at the west side ditch, the photo on the left is the diversion structure and the catwalk above it during really high flows. So you can see that the whole structure is inundated during high flow and essentially dysfunctional and also very hazardous. And then that same diversion structure during low flow in that middle photo shows one of the two gates is up and backing up water so that the ditch can divert water. But you can see that it creates a barrier to fish passage, so fish are not able to get upstream when that gate is up. And it's also hazardous both for the water users operating it, but also for anyone in that area. The photo in the upper right-hand corner shows the entire west side ditch diversion structure at high flow. You can see on river left that it blew out this past spring, which causes some pretty significant maintenance challenges for the water users on the ditch and significant costs to repair that. And then the head gates, the lower right-hand corner, are inefficient and leaky and just difficult to operate. So this project will address these issues and will result in a number of both short-term and long-term outcomes. In terms of short-term outcomes, which are more quantitative, we expect the project to result in 0.8 miles of improved river access for diversity of different types of recreation, from boating to fishing to just spending time next to the river. Also, improved irrigation infrastructure at the west side ditch will support about 1,400 acres of irrigated wet meadow habitat that's really critical for migratory waterfowl, and also will result in reduced maintenance needs for the water users. And then 6.7 new river miles will be opened to fish passage as a result of the West Side Ditch improvements during those critical summer months that are the irrigation season. And then in terms of long-term outcomes, which are a little bit more qualitative, we expect the project is really going to improve quality of life, both for residents in Alamosa, but visitors as well, and the entire San Luis Valley. And that's really through reconnecting the riverfront to the community, as Brian was talking about. Also, as Cassandra mentioned, there's really a lot of focus and attention being paid to continuing to support our communities and our economies. And with the agricultural economy shifting right now and a growing outdoor recreation economy, this project will really support a more diverse set of economies in the valley. And then also more broadly, just improved watershed health with improved aquatic habitat and resiliency to both drought and flood events. And so this impact is really going to benefit, the entire city of Alamosa, but also the larger San Luis Valley. We've seen with similar projects, for example, upstream in Del Norte, people flock to a riverfront park in Del Norte from all over the San Luis Valley. But additionally, folks who are passing through, a lot of folks pass through Alamosa, and we hope that, and we expect that people will be stopping at this riverfront park and maybe even making it a destination. And then, Rachel, over to you just to kind of more broadly talk about how this project really aligns well with the city's vision for activating and revitalizing the riverfront.
Really simple question. It's kind of just building on what Andy said earlier, that this has been the vision of the community for a long time, and that we have been really disconnected from the river. But our constituents, like the entire attitude of our community towards the river, is evolving. So 5-6 years ago, you never saw people playing in the river, and now you see kids and kayaks and paddle boards out there every day. So I mean, just it's evolving over time, and as a community, I think we have an obligation to really embrace the river, both in terms of improving the habitat, improving the access, but this would really be the jewel of the Rio Grande. So we have our two connected parks where you go from the riparian area to the refuge, and all of the improvements and the trails, and weaving in all of our levee improvements. But when you enter Alamosa, your main entrance is on the 160 bridge, either if you're coming into Alamosa or if you're leaving Alamosa. We have one-way streets, and so you're using that bridge no matter what. And this park will be forefront. That will be the main thing that you see. And so you'll see people using the river and in the river, and it's an identity for the entire community. When we did our downtown revitalization plan, it was called Downtown on the Rio. So it's really, we're one of the last communities in Colorado that has this incredible access to a river amenity and don't share it with our community and our visitors. And so it's like we're finally getting on board. Our people are already using it that way, and it's this one last push to really just build this beautiful jewel of a park that can be at the city's premier park where all of our events are. It can be a couple blocks from our downtown. It can be accessible all along the river trails from the entire community, and really just make the Rio Grande the center of the community, the heart of the community, like Andy said. And this project is really the linchpin of that.
Thanks, Rachel.
So to get to all these outcomes that we're talking about, we've developed 4 strategies. So as was previously mentioned, a lot of community engagement and planning has already gone into the development of this project. But our first strategy is to further that and ensure that the final project designs that we come up with is really what the community wants. We want to make sure that we got it right. So through the Peregrine program, we were able to develop a really robust and equitable outreach and engagement process to inform final designs, and then also keep the community engaged throughout the entire project process. And then another strategy is to create multiple thoughtfully designed pedestrian and boat access points, which I'll show you a visualization of here in a moment. replace that west side ditch diversion structure and head gates with a structure that includes fish and boat passage and automation. And then finally, to restore that area of river as best we can to include in-street and riparian habitat restoration, including a low flow channel and fish habitat structures throughout. So here are the conceptual designs that we were able to get together with help of the Peregrine Accelerator program. So I'll just go over that pretty quickly to give you a visualization of what we think this might look like, of course, pending further community engagement. So up in the upper section of the river on the left-hand side, we have a Cole Park boat ramp, which will connect to upstream boat ramps that have been put in recent years. An example of what that might look like is a photo in the bottom right-hand corner, which is one of the other boat ramps that we have here in the valley in the Rio Grande. Then right there after, on the right side of the river, we have kind of like a sandy beach area where people can just come down, hang out, reconnect to the river with a little trail from the levees down to that area. Then throughout the project reach from the Rio Grande Farm Park throughout the Cole Park area, we have these tiered rock structures which will act as great access to get down to the river for fishing, tubing. There'll also be aquatic habitat features as well and improve fish habitat. Then further down, we have the pedestrian underpass at the Highway 160 bridge to improve safety there. And then further down, we have the replacement of the west side ditch, again, to improve fish passage, safety, and agricultural water use. And then throughout the project reach, that blue area, that's the construction of the low flow channel, which will help particularly during low flow events. And then down there on the left-hand corner, that's kind of the visualization that we have for the tiered rock structures down to the river, and that's actually a photo of the Del Norte Riverfront project in Del Norte, just upstream, that we implemented several years ago. Yep. So measuring success for all of our projects, we go through significant project monitoring, and it's really just a continuation of what all of our organizations have been doing already. So we hope to see that community members are reporting utilizing the project and spending more time outdoors. Post-construction monitoring indicates improved ecological function, and that west side ditch water users report that their new structure is easy to use, safe, requires less maintenance, and reduces costs for them year to year. So our timeline, we're going to be releasing an RFP to hire an engineer for final project designs and architectural renderings to show to the community to get input. So we're hoping to have those in fall 2023, construction ready designs in summer 2024, cultural and environmental resources compliance permits by summer 2025, and then begin construction in fall of 2025. And all throughout that process up to construction and through construction, we'll continue community engagement to speak to those final designs and also keep the public updated throughout the process. And then also fundraising will continue through project construction. So our budget, we've been very successful over the course of the Peregrine Accelerator program in securing planning funding, of course, starting with that $10,000 from a variety of local, state, and private foundations. So we have all that money secured. Some of it is pending, but we do feel very confident that we will be receiving all of those grants. For final implementation, which is construction and materials, we estimate that to be about $2.5 million. We haven't secured any of that funding to date, but we do have a list of prospective funders that we plan on going after. And so over here on the right, we have our need. $55,000 would support 3 staff for 2 years to take us through project construction in 2025, which will help out with grant writing, administration, selecting a contractor to do that final construction and construction monitoring. And then any additional funding would kickstart our implementation funding and be leveraged from state and local grant programs as well as private foundations. And just to wrap up, so we have a clear project need, vision, and river health and community benefits that have been documented over years and years of planning to get us to this point. It's really ideal timing with the levy certification process happening, making sure that we're doing that in tandem with the city, and then also creating designs that will complement their goals as well. We have a collaborative team with a history of partnerships, and the requested funding would ensure successful project implementation. And yeah, thank you guys again so much, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thanks, everyone. Evaluators, I will turn it over to you, especially since we've got a little less than 10 minutes. Go for it, Holly.
Amazing. I have driven through Alamosa so many times, and I did not know that the river was so close. So this is quite the finding for me. Thank you. It was a very interesting presentation, cool project. I guess my question has to do a little bit with the asymmetry in the budget. It seems like you guys have done a really good job at fundraising, and like you have clearly a lot of agencies and groups on board. And so I'm just a little curious about your budget. So can you just like quickly elaborate on that number in relationship to the sort of the total cost of the project? Why go for 55 grand when you already have secure like that huge amount of money to implement this cool project?
Right. So the budget that I showed you earlier, which if Daniel, if you want to hop back to that. So I had to go over it pretty fast, so I apologize. But so we have been successful in obtaining funds for planning. So our community outreach that we're planning on doing, conceptual designs and engineering and permitting. But the funding that we're lacking is to get us to implementation, which to us is like the actual construction of all of these features that we're talking about. And with those conceptual designs that we received, our engineer gave us the estimate of $2.5 million to construct all of our different project components. And so that is what we do not have. And then we also do not have capacity funding to fundraise that $2.5 million.
Okay.
So that's what we're lacking.
Fair enough. I guess I didn't see the little, yeah. Okay, good clarification. Thank you.
Yes.
Cool project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ernesto.
Yeah, it's a fantastic project and a very good presentation. Thank you very much. Is this project sort of starting from scratch, or is it like an ongoing need for this region to instrument? And do you have other projects of this scale that have received funding in the past for not precisely for these types of projects, but to be implemented by this particular group in the past? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question, Ernesto. So this project itself is, I guess, new, but it's, as we said, really the result of years of planning, where we've really worked closely with the community to identify the need for the project. So it's a new, discrete project, but I will say that it builds off these years of planning and also successful previous projects. And to your second question, so the restoration project facilitated a similar project in the community of Del Norte, just upstream of Alamosa. It was similar. It involved river restoration and also community reconnection and the installation of a recreational playwave in the river, and we saw just incredible success with that project, both in terms of fundraising for it, but also just the way the community has flocked to it, and it's really just transformed the town of Del Norte. So
You couldn't go there on a summer's day without seeing a whole bunch of people utilizing it, so.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for the great presentation. Appreciated the background on the project. Mainly one question that might have two parts. So when you're thinking about, obviously you've done a lot of community engagement through the various planning processes that you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation. As you kind of, I guess one question I have for you is the plan that you showed I think it was a slide previous to this. How have you gotten community input and engagement on kind of where that project is at, or where the design is at right now? Or is that sort of something that will happen as you move into the implementation phase from here? And I'll ask my second question after that.
Yeah, so the community has not seen these designs yet. We first wanted to make sure that we've selected an engineer that's going to complete the final designs in engineering. And then along with that, we wanted to make sure that we produced architectural renderings, because I don't think that an average person in the community could look at this and really get a visualization of what it might look like. So we really wanted to make sure that we had those two pieces in place, had a really good design, really good renderings before we showed the community exactly what we were thinking. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Cassandra. And then my follow-up would be, is the thought process, and I can't remember your timeline, but to hire the engineer kind of later this year, and then obviously you'll kickstart into the actual kind of engagement with the community and getting any final buy-in in the next year or so?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so we have that we're going to be releasing the RFP probably in the next couple of weeks or so. So it'll probably take a little while for selection, and then once they generate their conceptual designs and renderings, then we'll do probably a several-month community engagement process, which will land us at the construction-ready designs in summer of 2024, incorporating all of the feedback that we received from the community.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Team Alamosa, thank you so much for your presentation. This was great. We've got one more 15-minute break before the last round of the day. If you guys want to see the BCI team, feel free to hop on the Vimeo stream. And otherwise, we will be back in about 13 minutes.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you all.